Hi and welcome back to part 2 of the review. In part 1 we looked at the overall set. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a good look at the adventure. So if you are a player, please leave at this point. Yes, I know it messes up my views. However, at the end of the day I want this to be a good review and I want you to enjoy the adventure. So let's have a look at what we've got then. Lovely cover. I mean, it's only a softbound cover, as all the other starter sets are. I've seen people say, oh, I wish they'd put a card cover on it. Yeah, but cost comes in at that point. And it is a nice material in all of you can get it as a PDF if you'd rather. So let's have a look at what we've got. We've got a nice contents list at the start. That's always good. So it talks about the number of players that I referred to in the previous video. End of the day, I think that perhaps could have done with being fleshed out a little. A few more pages in here would have been useful, or even a couple of pages in the other book. So what do we have then? We've got the overview telling you what's going on. The Forgotten Realms themselves, it's set in the Forgotten Realms, and we'll show you where in a minute. The adventure background. Now it does go off at a bit of a tangent as to where we might end up after the scenario. You really only get to what's going on at the end, and a lot of this the players may well never find out. Now it's broken down as the adventure outline into 4 chapters, and we'll go through each chapter in turn. So it talks about some tips for being a dungeon master. Yeah, that's always useful, and they are fairly straightforward bits of advice. So Stormwreck Isle then, we have the location, and you can see it's just off the coast of the Sword Coast, just off the high road, so it is close enough to Phandelver and Icespire Peak that we could actually do this potentially even as a side quest. That may be something that you want to look at if you are a more experienced DM. This paragraph is brilliant. Making mistakes. It tells you you're going to make mistakes. Just have fun. That is the best advice. Every time I see it in a chat group, oh, I'm about to DM for the first time. What do I need to know? It'll go wrong. Enjoy it. It doesn't matter. So we get the Dragon's Rest. Now this is the monastery that is basically the basis of the adventure, and it talks through what's going on. It drops the players in straight away. They've arrived at the island. Now some people have said, I don't like that, I'd rather have them have a bit of an adventure before they get there. Think of it more like a film. This is for new players. Role players are going to love that part, but a new player, they want to get playing the game. They don't want to be chatting about their motivations. You can have a brief part of that, but we're straight in. We've landed and we're being attacked by zombies. It's a nice touch. It does talk through the special abilities of the zombies. Talks through Runara's aid. Now Runara is the dragon. One of the dragons. Now, and usually for a dragon, she's a pacifist. And she runs the abbey. But players won't realise that for some time. And she will intervene to rescue them if there is a problem. It even gives you the option to avoid the zombies and run away. So it's trying to think of all the things the players might do. So once you arrive, you actually meet the inhabitants, and there's quite a bit of detail on Runara. Explains what she does, and then there's the kobolds. There are a number of kobolds. I think it's 9 of them. One of these can be absolutely vital later in the adventure. The kobolds are lawful good. Now D&D has moved away from the stereotypes. All races are sort of one alignment. I did a video about that a while back. I'll put a link in the description. But this gives you some very nice kobolds that they'll chat to, and they literally will come up pestering the player characters initially until Runara sort of guides them away. You've also got 2 humans there as well. One of these is one of the side quests for one of the PCs, so you can find out a bit about them. They also come in important later on. We get a quick guide to the various parts of the abbey, with the temple, which is a place the players can use as a base, and the different cells, the winch house to get there, the kitchen and the library. So it's nice and straightforward. Talks through some of the extra quests that you can have there. Another zombie attack. Yeah, they can talk about the sea caves, the shipwreck. These are ones that you will see in a minute. And then we've got the individual quests, each one broken down as to what they need to do. So those are the quests to build up to the big one, the Lost Wormling. So this is the second dragon of the island. Now, it sort of talks about what has happened in the past. This is a bronze dragon wormling who is not a believer in the pacifism of Runara. They've quarrelled, he's gone, and he's now been taken captive, and it's rescuing him. Exploring the island, it gives some extra encounters. So you've got hot springs with some drakes there. The owlbear, now that's actually quite a tough encounter, the owlbear. It's a CR3, so it's actually designed really for right at the end of the quest. However, there is a way to defeat it very, very easily if the players use some brains. I would save that until late on. Use that towards the end. You've got kobold renegades, so they're evil kobolds on the island. And there's a suggested expansion here, which I'm not going to go into in any depth, but basically the red dragon that is either buried or imprisoned on the island and is causing some problems later on, it suggests that may be a way forward. I've seen some reviews have gone, oh, well, that's a cop-out, we should have had that. No, this is a quick, short campaign. This is designed to get the players up a few levels and to get them into the game. Where that can come in useful is to actually bring them back to the island quite a few levels on and make it a more epic quest. So some nice little encounters. If you have time, create more. That would be one of my big tips. Come up with some nice simple encounters. Not all combat related. Have some fun ones. So we have the first adventure location then, the Seagro Caves. Now, Tarek from the Dragon's Rest, one of the humans, usually gets rare fungi from there, which you will exchange with the Myconids that are in the caves. Unfortunately, there's now a guardian to the caves, stopping the players getting in. And when the players do get in, they will find that the tribe has got problems themselves. This is all about dealing with that. Now, I like the fact it talks about how if you approach by boat, if you approach along the coast, how you actually enter in the cave. It talks about the different tidal levels. Yeah, not a big place, as you can see. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 encounter areas. Nice touch, depending on the character's levels. It suggests how to modify the scenarios to suit. So basically, it's all about trying to get rid of some toxic fumes which are giving the problem to the cabin's inhabitants. And if you deal with that, you've then achieved what you're trying to do. And end result, you gain a level. This doesn't use experience points. This is all story based. Every time they complete one of the dungeons, they go up a level. This one can be completed mostly by non-fighting. A lot of this, if you're a hack and slash player, you're going to struggle because things will ally with you if you try. So then we come to this, the Cursed Shipwreck. Now, I love this bit. This is one of my favourites. Easy to expand by further shipwrecks. More and more ships are wrecking. Fortunately, the players were lucky, but you could put a hint in on this, mention that the boatman is a bit wary of taking them, for example. And this basically is dealing with a ship called the Compass Rose, the ruin of it. And you've got a nice map of it, 4 levels, various encounter areas. You start sort of, you've got the deck, you've got the captain's quarters, the galley, the crew's quarters, the mess hall, going down into the lower deck and the hold where they can find various items. going into the hold, and this is where they actually find why the zombies are around and how to deal with it. Brilliant. They think they've achieved everything. They get back to the deck, and at this point the adventure changes. A harpy appears. The harpy has been using its song to get the ships onto the rocks. Now, I love the fact that you don't have to actually fight the harpy. There is a whole section on how to talk to them. In fact, there is more on talking to the harpy than fighting it, which I love. That is a brilliant concept. And at the end of it, the players come back. Hopefully they've identified why the zombies are there, which is down to, depends how you look at it, a blessing or a curse from Orcus, which has gone wrong. And it can actually result in a happy ending on that. So those are the first two parts. Then we come to the Clifftop Observatory. This is the big finale to the adventure. Now, it's designed so that really you need to do the other two first, and it's always a good plan. Renara will only give them this once she actually has seen their prowess, which means they've completed the first two quests. So again, we've got the usual how to approach, and you've got a blue dragon wormling, Sparkrender. Now, I do like the way that Sparkrender seems to have varied in size between the two illustrations there and the illustration on the cover. So he is completely different size. Okay, I could live with that. It's artistic license by each of the artists. So the observatory, when they actually arrive, they won't know they're coming. There are kobolds there, and it gives details on their plans. Now, what they need is Runara to give them a magic key that will get them across, which will help them, but will limit them when they're there, because they need then to find a way to get the key across. But as soon as they remove the key, the bridge vanishes. So the players need to do something there. One of the ways they can do that is encountering the winged kobolds. Now, the kobolds are evil, but they can be reasoned with, and the players' actions at the Abbey may result in them being friendly to the player characters, which is a nice touch. So they can find the rest of the Kobold Camp, and again, this is usually going to be a combat encounter, but doesn't have to be. You then have the main tower, which is where the climax of the adventure occurs. It gives you different options, because they may have gone to the study and got some clues there. Once they get to this, it gives them the option of trying to sneak past the dragon or wake the dragon up, and there's a lot of information on how to role play the dragon with some great lines of dialogue. Rather hammed up, but hey, that's what you should be having. If they get past him, they actually get to Airdron, who is the bronze dragon wormling who is captured, and they can try and rescue him. What if it goes wrong? What if they're driven off? Well, then we come back to the ritual, where he's going to be sacrificed by Sparkrender, and we've now got a big climactic battle again. They can try and free him, and the dragon will fight on their side, which is going to be a lovely climactic encounter, and is the piece that's there on the cover. This has got every potential to be a lovely looking scenario. This is crying out for miniatures. So there are various magical effects and things going on there, and it just describes how they can achieve it. You've then got the magic items. There are a few magic items that they can find during the adventure, particularly potions of healing. They will crop up quite regularly, which are quite useful. Now, one thing I do find with this is a lot of the encounters, they will pick up money. Great. But there is absolutely no way to spend it on the island. Perhaps somewhere where they could restock a little. You might want to consider that the Abbey perhaps has a few bits and pieces. Probably nothing drastic, but everyday supplies they might be able to sort for you, things like that. And then we get the creatures. Now it's an interesting range of creatures for this one. It gives all the rules for them, but you've got a blue dragon wormling, great, we obviously need that one, Runara, and the bronze dragon wormling, so we actually get the details of those. Fire snakes, now I quite like them as being a larval form of salamander. They're not massively powerful, they're a challenge rating of 1, but they're going to be a nice encounter. We've got fume drakes. Now these are creatures that come from the magical energy of a dead dragon. I don't know if these have been available anywhere else, but they're a nice idea. I'd have liked an illustration of them, if I'm honest there. A ghoul, yeah, is one of those hidden away on the pirate ship. The Harpy, yeah. Fortunately, it gives a nice description, but again, no illustration. I can see that being fun. If you want to have fun, see what they look like, go watch Jason and the Argonauts. That is the film to watch for them. Kobolds with various types. The Myconids. So we've got sprouts and adults. So we've got various ones there. You've got Sinessa, who's one of the leaders of the Myconids. So we've got all different levels there. The owlbear, which like I say is quite a challenge for players, but it is one of those creatures that it's a bit iconic for D&D. You've then got Spore Servant Octopus, details of that. I quite like that as a guardian. The good old Sturge. Sturges were always one of the best animals that you could throw at player characters. Then you've got the 2 humans at the dragon's rest. And on the back page, Violet Fungus. I like these, which they basically, the tentacles strike out rotting flesh where they touch. That's a nice one. And then the zombies. So there are not a lot of monsters in there, but they've moved away from the standard ones. It's not all goblins. There's no orcs. Instead, we've got some nice variation. It fits the ecosystem of the island. Not a lot of adventure. You could probably run through this in probably 4 sessions, I would say. Maybe slightly more, depends on your player characters. As a starting adventure, there's not things to be sidetracked on. Number of times I've had issues on the Lost Mine of Phandelver where they've had too much to do. There's too many things to consider. The character quests are focused, so they will go straight to them. And when you look at this, it works. There's nothing complex in it. It's very easy to play. You haven't got lots to consider. You can add to it. For a more veteran DM, it's probably less value. You won't get much out of the rulebook. The adventure is nice. It gives you a new location in the Forgotten Realms on the Sword Coast. But what it does give you is a really nice sandbox adventure for PCs. There's not a lot of places to go, but they have the choice as to where they're going. And it's more about role-playing than killing things, which I think is really good. Yes, there's fighting, don't get me wrong, but what there is a really, really nice element to the role-play. You can have the kobolds, not necessarily changing sides, that's unlikely, but what they can do is they can actually perhaps back down. They don't help the dragon. You've got the kobolds in the monastery. They're pacifists, but they could help in other ways. You've got the Myconids. Can they possibly get involved? You've got so many options that you can go off to. I like it. I think it's well worth the money. Would I buy it over the other 2? Yeah. Lost Mine of Phandelver is a classic. It has issues. We all know that. The green dragon in there. The Ice Spire Peak is probably more useful for a more experienced player or experienced DM who wants to bring new players in. It gives you more to look at. There's more to it. It's a lot more adventure. But this, as a starting adventure, is probably ideal. If I'd had this in the 1980s when I was gaming, I would have absolutely loved this. It's something you can use to build on. So Hopefully that's been useful. Let me know what you think in the comments. I do actually read everything that comes in, and if somebody makes a comment, I always try and answer it. And I genuinely do want to know what you think. So thank you very much for watching me ramble on for about 20 minutes, and I'll see you soon for another review.